Hi everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Doing Business Better webinar today. And today's topic is how to create an organisational approach to continuous improvement. I'm your host Chandel. Before we begin, I'll just go through some housekeeping with you. You'll be put on mute during the presentation to reduce background noise and disruptions. Should you wish to ask a question, please raise your hand or type the question in the chat box. If you're dialing in, please press *9. The presenter has asked that all questions are saved to the end of the presentation. I'll now pass you on to Stephen Gretsch from Doing Business Better. Thanks, Stephen.
All right, thanks for that. And welcome everybody to today's session. For those that have been joining us from previous sessions, welcome back. And for those additional people that are joining us for the first time, welcome to the session. I hope people have, from the past, gained a lot of value out of the session that we've run. I'm Steve Greck, and today is part 7 of a 9-part series, and they're all recorded, so you can always go back and listen to these at your leisure through the portal. And each of these sessions are designed to give you some tools to become more productive in your operational side of business and reduce costs. And in this economic climate, this is really a must for all businesses to do, particularly now, actually, because now when people have more time up their sleeve, particularly those that are winding down just due to the less economic activity, this is a great opportunity to upskill your staff and look at your processes and become more thorough and productive in the way you do things. And when things pick up again, then you'll be able to smash it and be able to really grow your business. So each session will look at different tools, and today we're going to be looking at how to do an organisational approach to continuous improvement. Again, for those that aren't familiar with these series, I've got a company called Doing Business Better. I work with companies like yourself to look at the operational processes, work with many different organisations, and it's about freeing up staff time, implementing best practice processes so that you're delivering value from everything you're doing. You're not wasting staff's time and effort, and therefore you're looking at how you do what you do, where you've got problems, how do you solve those problems with your staff and do things a lot better. And if you do that, you're going to be increasing your profits, you can reduce your costs, you can increase your business competitiveness. So the structure that these sessions have been, we've gone through session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and today we're now looking at number 7, which is about creating a whole of organisational approach to continuous improvement. So today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on how to create an organisational approach for that continuous improvement. The best way to do this is to have a plan. And before we create a plan, we need to understand what it takes to implement change and make it work and stick. Too often I work with businesses, sometimes new, but they fail to get the full benefits of any initiative to improve the business performance because they don't understand what it takes to make it stick. And they don't think it really through far enough and have a sound approach on how to fail or how to stop failing in these approaches. And what I want to show you is what I call the building blocks of change. So on the top row is what it really takes to make change stick in an organisation. So if we just follow the equation, you need the leadership of the business, whether it's a small micro business or a medium, whatever it might be, but you need that leadership on board. And what we're trying to achieve out of this, what is the vision? And there has to be a need. Obviously, you might have a need that we need to do things faster. We need to do things with less time it takes to do it in terms of the clock. It takes 3 days to do this or 2 days to do this or turn around or whatever. It could be a need that we've been measuring our performance and we're not meeting our KPIs and we need to achieve these. And by achieving those, we'll make a lot more money, reduce a lot more costs, we'll improve a lot more satisfaction. It's also the skills of the organisation. Do we have the skills to be able to achieve what we're trying to do? Do we have the technical capabilities? And next one is, do we have the resources to do this? Do we have the time, the money? Do we have the equipment to be able to do what we need to do? and then we need to real plan, think about how we make this work, make this stick. So if we did all these things, we had the vision, we had the need, we had the skills, we have the resources, we have a plan, then you'll have sustained change. Fantastic. Well, what actually happens in the real world is some organisations, might have most of these, but they don't have the leadership on board to drive it. They might say, the owner says, to the, supervisor or the team leader, you go off and do this improvement stuff, you go off, and they're not really wed into it. They don't understand what it all means. And what happens with that is you end up with confusion. It just doesn't work. Mixed messages. Then you go to the next level. Some places, they have the leadership and the vision, but what they don't have is a real need. Well, obviously, if you're trying to do something, there's no real need, then it's going to drag along, isn't it? It's going to stop, start. The care factor's lower. There's nothing really driving it. But if you have the vision and you have a need, but you don't have the skills, then you're going to get people getting anxious about it. You're putting them on the spot to do something they're not equipped to do, not skilled to do. You either stress them out, or they just want to leave, or it's just not a pleasant way of going about it, and it just won't work. So we're starting to see gaps in what it takes to make a change stick. And we go to the next level. Well, you have a need and you really want to do it, and staff are going to be trained up or want to be trained up. You have a plan, but you don't have the resources to do this, the time, the money, whatever it might take to save the money. Then everyone's going to get frustrated. And the last one here is, obviously, if you have all these things in line, management's on board, they understand what the benefits of the organisation is for improvement. There is a real need. We're really not achieving these things. If we achieve these targets, in response time, in time to quote, all this sort of stuff, then, the client will be happy, everyone will be happy. We've got staff that are trained up and skilled to be able to keep taking the place to the next level. We've got the resources in place, but we don't have a structure or a plan, and we're just making it up as we go. Then it's just going to stop, start, and probably fall apart, and you pull this time and effort in. Goes nowhere. So knowing all this, and this is what really happens in the real world, is they don't do what's the top line of all the things you need to do to make change stick. I come into the place and help them with building the leadership vision of what the improvement opportunity can be for the business to help fill that gap. In terms of need, I help them with working out where they are in their performance, the current performance measures, and help them with that as well. Skills, we train the staff and management in the principles of process improvement, how to see waste, the time and effort, how to do the problem solving, how to map processes, how to continuously improve the way they work. And we talk to them about what kind of resources you require and the kind of timing it takes, and therefore come up with a plan with them. So if you have any gaps in any of these sort of 5 categories to make change stick, Doing Business Better can help you with those. But it's really important to understand that if you don't have one of these, if you don't have all these 5 boxes ticked, then it's going to be a bit of a struggle. You can do some things, that's great, but the chance of it sticking is going to be reduced. So I just wanted to put that into context, that these are the kind of things you can be doing to help create an organisational approach. You need to have a plan in place to make all these things work, because if you don't have a plan, then what will end up happening, tends to happen, is people try to make it up as they go. And that's kind of okay, but they're the ones that usually say, oh, it didn't work. And usually didn't work because we didn't go through and have a plan. So through this webinar series, we've sort of looked at significant opportunities for improving business performance. And we've been doing that through showing you how to map processes, learning how to do some problem solving, learning how to engage staff to find out what their ideas are to make work easier and improve customer experience. If you remember, we did the mapping, the problem solving using the fishbone diagrams or cause and effect diagrams. We did the 5 whys and that sort of thing. So whilst there are a number of actions your business can take to become more productive, the level of benefits your business will gain will be dependent upon two main things. First is, what kind of level of buy-in do you have from your management in doing this? Now, if they're not really understanding why we're doing it, and just staff are trying to do the improvements without team leader, supervisors, and the owner involved, it's going to struggle. And you'll achieve some things, but that's where I come in to help work with the management to understand what their role is for this, to lead from the front, and to create the environment for this to work in your business. And to create that environment is really important, because that's about where the plan comes in and what kind of resources we need to put into place to make this work. And the second and equally important ingredient is to have that plan. So it's not just about the leadership, but it's about to have the plan where we can get together with the sort of senior people to work out how we're going to approach bringing this across the organisation. Again, as I was saying before, that trying to bring this into an organisation where one person tries to push this along is a really hard slog. And what we want to really be able to do is work with the owners of the business for them to get it, them to see what benefit this brings, how much this could save the business, how much this could improve organisation performance, organisational reputation, and talk to them about where they're at now and what kind of thinking we need to go into place to change the way the business operates in a process sense, and therefore in a performance sense, and therefore in a profits way, and start talking about, well, what's your current performance? What are the goals we need to have? What are kind of targets we want to achieve? When do you want to do this by? How are we going to get the time for staff to talk to me, for example, or talk to whoever's going to do it in your company? Because it doesn't happen without people talking. So unless you can pull them offline for a little bit and spend some time together to discuss so you can save time, it's really hard to make improvements without getting people involved. And they need to have those skills, not just to see work differently, but to be actively involved. When they're actively involved, that's usually because they've been trained and they're more competent to help this through. So there's some training in that. And when they start realizing there's things to do and things to improve, then they start identifying little projects we should improve this, we should improve that. And that's where you start getting pockets of gold. So without a plan, meaning giving yourself the time to think through how this will work, what you need to do to make it work and what it needs to be in place to ensure you don't slip back into the old ways. You need to run the risk of all the benefits of seeking the improvement in efficiency, productivity, and releasing time, and reinvest that in value-adding activity elsewhere. We need some time together to start planning for this. And these bullet points about key considerations are only just some of the key considerations. These aren't all the considerations that need to be made. So if I just sort of get to, I suppose, finish up on these kind of key points, is that there's a number of steps. I sort of talk about sort of 5 steps to approach to continuous improvement. And that is that the business, all staff, and the key word is all staff, need to understand the principles of wasting time and effort, what's adding value, what's not adding value, double handling, rework. And that's one of the earlier sessions we had in this webinar series. They need to get that. And management and owners of the business need to get that, because once they get it and have the little light bulb moment, then they realize, there's lots of things we could do to make work a lot easier, faster, cheap to do, better performance, better response time, all that type of activity. And if they get that, then they should lead from the front. But there's a bit of work that needs to be done with them to understand what their role is in doing that. And if they sort of pass go with that, then they should be leading out the front to then identify what are kind of areas we should be looking at within our operations that should be improved in the performance sense, which would do a lot quicker, therefore less labour time and better response time, so better response for the customer, more productive because we're doing more with the same or even with less, all that kind of thing. And management need to understand what kind of areas we should prioritise. And once we've done that, then we realise, okay, how are we going to make this happen? And that's where the plan comes into place, having a documented plan, a strategy on how to bring this across to the place. Because just because people can see that there's opportunity to improve and they do a higgle-diggly approach, that's not going to be as effective as having a structured approach and plan to make this happen. Because we do have to have staff's time. You know, even if you do this yourself, you do need to have staff available to work through solving problems to processes and coming up with, well, what is the current process and what's the issues and what could be a better process we put in place. You can't do that without talking to people unless you're dictating it to them. And what we need to be able to do is come up with how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, what are the resources in place, how we're going to work out what we're currently doing, how we're going to work out what are the issues, where we're going to come up with a better process, how we're going to document it, how we're going to roll it out, how we're going to upskill staff, how we're going to make this keep going. That's the planning bit we need to do. And once we've got a plan in place, somewhere along the way, we need to upskill staff. Because what we'd want, if we're talking about continuous improvement, is in a whole organisational approach, is that staff got to understand those principles that you learned as management or as owners in step one. They need to understand when you start talking about double handling, what the heck you're talking about. If you're talking about rework or errors or defects, they need to understand the consequences of those, that if you do make a mistake or cut things short or long, or you put things in the wrong place, or you didn't follow plans, or whatever it is, the effects of that defect, which could set back the job quite a lot and soak up all the profits. So they need to be upskilled. And if you recall, we touched on a topic or a technique called 5S in 1 or 2 sessions ago, which is about the workplace layout. And I showed you photos, and I can quickly show you again if we've got time, photos of layouts where, you know, people leave things all over the place and they waste a lot of time searching for things. And I just showed you photos of, you know, how it could look in workshops or, you know, storerooms or warehouses where it's very, or vans, where it's very organised and you don't waste time looking for things or running out of things. But there's also training needs to be involved in that. It's not just go off and do it, because if you just go off and do it, oh, great, Steve, you've seen some photos, I can just mirror that. Yeah, you can mirror that, but I'll bet you what will happen is it'll go back to its old ways because you don't have a system in place. And 5S is a 5-step system to make sure that those productive workplace layouts are improved and stick that way. So there's a bit of training and upskilling of staff. And then there's all these little improvements that you'll be making or changes to process, which are projects which you'll be doing. And those sort of projects need to be supported as well. So there's a piece of work, well, we've identified all these improvement opportunities, but we're the only ideas at this stage, we need to make them happen. We see changes to process, we need to write them up and implement it and teach everyone else about the new process so they don't go doing it the old way, because now we've got a better way. So I see this sort of 5-step process here as a fundamental part of creating a whole organisational approach to continuous improvement. So today we're sort of looking at, you know, developing an improvement plan, and this is a slide I've used before, but it is about really developing a plan so that we've got a role for the leadership and we understand the maturity of the organisation and where it's at the moment, and how accepting is it to change. And that's where really that first slide is, with the 5 parts of the equation equaling change. So we need to help organisations become ready for doing this and be committed to doing this, and look at what kind of improvement activity have they done in the past. Some have done things, some have done nothing. Those who've done things that didn't work, well, I find out it didn't work because they really didn't have the leadership buy-in. They had one of those parts of that equation missing. They didn't have all the 5, and therefore they also didn't have a culture of improvement The culture was, well, people aren't happy where they are. We need to understand all those things in the planning cycle so that the execution and bringing this into the organisation, so you get all those improvements for those maps that we saw before, or the problem solving come to fruition. And we need to know what the staff's skills are in this area, because some people have got a lot of skills which maybe we're underutilising in this type of space of change or improvement. And the other bit is about the availability of staff to do the work and therefore make savings. It's hard to make savings and efficiencies if people don't put the time in to make the money. So it's pretty simple as that. If we don't put the time in to save the time, that's pretty hard to do things on top of your existing job unless you get them to work late or on weekends. So just to recap, we've got this building blocks of change. To get the money, to get the goal, to get the result we're looking for, which gives us the change, we need to have the vision. We need to have the need, the skills, the resources, and the plan. And my organisation can help you with each part of these or all of them. So it can be one or multiple parts that you may have missing. So we can give you that that expertise in the organisation and talk to your management. We can identify your needs and where your performance is and how your performance can be improved and where to target your focus. We can upskill your staff to be trained in how to see waste and how to map processes and how to do problem solving on a continuous basis, how to come up with good standard operating procedures, all the things we've had in previous sessions, how to do problem solving and so on. We can work with you to work out what resources are required, not over the top, just required to make this work and make it stick so that you can gain the benefits for many years to come. And we can help you develop a plan to execute this so it's done once, done properly, and your organisation benefits and reaps the rewards of efficiency and productivity gains. And if you do that with the staff and engaging the staff to be part of this solution together, you'll come up with much better organisation, transform your business, and you'll achieve the change, which is the sustained bit at the end. So I'll leave it at that. I do have some other photos I could show you, but you can go to a previous session, which is the 5S, to look at how you do that workplace layout and design. Again, to make that change, they do need to be trained in how to do this as well. But if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. I hope that gives you a bit of a feel for if you want to do a whole organisation approach to continuous improvement. It's as multifaceted, and you do really need to have a bit of a strategy or a plan in place and have all those 5 categories aligned and ticked, so that if you're doing something, you might as well do it properly and do it once and do it well, and that will help make it stick.
Great, thanks Stephen for that interesting presentation today. I found the content quite useful and hope that our listeners also did. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand now or type the question in the chat box. You're more than welcome to remain anonymous, but if you feel comfortable, please introduce yourself. Okay. Now, I do have a few questions here that were sent to us via the chat function while you were presenting, Steve. The first question is, you talked about 5 steps to improvement. Can you provide more detail on what each step might improve? What would involve?
Well, each step is really working with the organisation, and I'll go back to that, maybe that slide. It's really working with that organisation to have a small session with the management about, you know, what lean is, different tools, what value stream mapping is, how it comes up with better processes which cost less and are a lot more efficient. And then working out with them, well, what kind of measures do you have? And if you don't have measures, then I'll help them create a set of measures and help them write up a plan to execute this. And part of it to achieve the results is that we need to train the staff. And then usually a lot of them say, could you help us make sure that we implement this and sustain it? So it's really giving them that sort of coaching at the end. So it's really those kind of bits of the ingredients which help achieve the sort of cycle that you need, and the capability building and a structured planned approach, which will help make it stick and achieve the benefits.
Great. And another question I have is, how long would it take for you to create a plan for a business with, say, 7 staff? I have 2 electricians and 2 admin staff.
Okay. So we've got a group of about 7 people. I'd probably be in the business for 3 or 4 days. I'd be doing these type of things, these 5 sort of steps with them, and again, as I said before, that the information session and to management to get their buy-in might be just a couple of hours, spending a few more hours about looking at the measurements, or if they don't have any help create them, spend a day or 2 knocking up a plan and then training the staff. And you only got sort of 7 staff, then training the staff for a few hours one day, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours another day, because they're going to go back to work. You're not taking them offline all day, and then following up. So it's only a handful of days that would then reap so much benefit of improving your processes and become more productive.
Okay, great. And the last question is, how much staff time would you need to do all the steps?
Well, there's not a great deal of staff time, to be honest, because I'll be starting with step 1, which is really working with your management team. And then I'd be going off and writing up a plan. The training for staff, for again, going back to a team of 7 people, isn't a great deal in terms of staff training time. We're talking probably about, 3 or 4 hours of staff training time. But I just need to work with some people offline to map the process, and I might need to spend maybe a day or 2 with different individuals, not everyone all together, but it might be 2 or 3 to map out how do you do the quoting, or how do you do this, or how do you do that, so we can come up with why it's happening, what are the problems, what we can do better. So the staff time is kept as a minimum, because you need to be on the tools rather than working in workshops, but there is that requirement to be able to talk with people to map it out. And I would say for a group of, say, if I use the benchmark of a group of 7 people, then probably with people that are on the tools, more or less, I might work with them for maybe a maximum of a couple of days spread over a period of time. And I'm usually with industries like yourselves, we do a lot of 2-3 hour session blocks, so then they can go off back to work.
Fantastic. Well, doesn't seem to be any other questions. So thank you again today, Stephen, for taking the time to speak to our members. Thank you all to those that took the time to join us. Recordings will be available if you want to rewatch and share this with your team. The next webinar will be on Wednesday, the 8th of April, 11 AM. And the topic will be develop staff's ability and continuously, how to develop staff's ability to continuously improve the way they work. The full schedule can be found on our website. Please register even if you're unable to attend, and we'll share the recordings with you. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.